I took my 4-year-old son, Finn, to the beauty clinic. The consultant saw him and immediately asked, "Is he Director Miller's son?" She added, "If you cover his nose, he's the spitting image of Director Miller." My heart sank. Ever since Finn was born, I'd always felt he didn't look like me. If he hadn't resembled my husband, I would have suspected he was switched at birth, but because of my reserved nature, he was closer to my best friend, Chloe Miller, almost like mother and son. When I got home and covered the lower half of Finn's face with a piece of paper, I discovered his eyes and eyebrows were exactly like Chloe's. Chloe and I were college classmates and roommates. Back in college, Chloe came from a poor background, and I often helped her out. Later, through her introduction, I met Kyle Sterling, who was a year ahead of me. It wasn't long before Kyle pursued me relentlessly. After graduation, even though my parents didn't approve of Kyle, I was so smitten that they eventually gave me a substantial dowry, allowing me to marry him. Soon after we married, I was in a car accident that left me unable to handle the demands of a long-term job, so I resigned to focus on getting pregnant and taking care of Kyle. Kyle, meanwhile, used my dowry to start his own business. He's doing quite well now, with his company pulling in $5 to $6 million annually. Chloe worked as a preschool teacher at an elite private school near my house, leading a very relaxed life. She often came to my house for meals and to stay overnight. After Finn was born, we even traveled together. But now, seeing Finn's eyes and eyebrows that were exactly like hers, I instantly lost my composure. If Finn was Chloe and Kyle's child, then what about the baby I carried for 9 months of pregnancy? A chill shot from my feet to my head at the thought, freezing me so thoroughly I almost couldn't stand. But this was all just my suspicion. Even though Finn was usually mischievous, I couldn't just assume he wasn't my child based on a hunch. I needed proof. So I pulled out some of Finn's hair and then went to Chloe's room to find some of hers. I wasn't afraid of making a mistake, as only the 4 of us lived in the house. I have naturally curly hair, while Chloe and Kyle shared the same aesthetic preference for long, straight dark hair. After I had the hair, I gave samples from both of them to my childhood friend, Ethan Hayes, who worked at the hospital. 3 hours later, Ethan sent me the paternity test results. When I saw that their parentage probability was 99.99%, confirming a blood relationship, my heart nearly stopped. I collapsed onto the floor. Where was my child? Snapping back to reality, I picked up my cell phone and quickly dialed Kyle Sterling's number. "If there's something, we can talk about it when I get back. I'm working. Can you please stop calling me for no reason? You don't have to work to earn money, you just stay at home all day. How can you possibly have so much going on? You have nothing better to do." As soon as he answered, Kyle launched into a harsh scolding. Before I could explain, he hung up. I stared blankly at the disconnected call, my heart aching. After we got married, even though I was recovering at home, I was the one who brought in all the major orders during Kyle's early days as an entrepreneur. For his business, I pushed myself every day to pull strings and find resources for him. I left the house earlier than him every morning and went to bed later. Everything he didn't understand, I learned piece by piece and patiently taught him. Yet, behind my back, he not only had a child with someone else but also swapped my baby. I wouldn't stand for this, and I refused to let that despicable couple off the hook. More importantly, where was my child? Next I called Chloe, feigning complaint. "Finn, that kid. I don't know who he takes after. He's mischievous to the core. He caused such a fuss at the beauty clinic that I had to come back without finishing half my treatments. What kind of mother are you? Finn is so well behaved. It's just that you always have a gloomy expression and scare him." Hearing the disapproval in Chloe's tone, which I used to interpret as concern for Finn, I could only clench my fingers and sneer. "I'm only doing what's best for him. Since you put it that way, I'll cancel all his extracurricular activities and let him grow up happy. That way he won't always be closer to you than to me. No, no, no. Grace Davis, I'm truly afraid of you. A child can't afford to fall behind from the start. I'll come over after work and help you discipline him. Just don't do anything rash." I knew that would happen. I hadn't noticed it before, but now that I think about it, wasn't Chloe the one who suggested everything Finn was supposed to learn? Even his nickname, Finn, was given by Chloe. After hanging up, I called all of Finn's tutors, informing them they weren't needed as we were heading back to my hometown for a visit. They wanted to use my money to raise her son. Dream on. But this wasn't enough. Once I found my child, I swore I'd get revenge on those two despicable individuals. While waiting for Chloe to get off work, I had Ethan Hayes buy me a lot of hidden cameras and phone spyware. Ethan's family was in the electronics business, so buying from him was the safest and most reliable option. Then I installed the surveillance devices in various corners of the house and inside a designer bag worth $1 million that Kyle had given me last month. When I received that bag, Chloe's eyes went red with envy. At the time she lied, telling me she was just moved by the love between Kyle and me. Now it's clear she was just consumed by insane jealousy. Though giving her something so expensive felt like throwing good money after bad. She was so deceitful. If I didn't give her something to satisfy her vanity, something she'd carry daily, I wouldn't be able to monitor the information I needed. After work, Kyle actually came home, and less than 2 minutes later, Chloe also entered, catching the faint, identical scent of perfume on them. A wave of nausea washed over me. I wanted nothing more than to destroy that despicable couple, but I couldn't. I needed to find out the child's whereabouts first. During dinner, Finn sat between Kyle and Chloe. Finn and Chloe were laughing and chatting endlessly, and Kyle watched them playfully squabble, a smile in his eyes. She was teasing, and he was smiling. What a picture of a happy family. If only the man wasn't my husband. Come on, eat your food, stop playing around, I said. Maintaining my usual naive and innocent demeanor, Kyle's face instantly went blank after hearing me, and Finn looked startled. Grace, look how you've scared Finn. You can't yell at a child his age. You need to be gentler. And then hell like you, out of the corner of my eye. I saw Kyle's displeasure with me and his satisfaction with Chloe. I immediately felt my blood boil, but I had to hold back. Right, Chloe, thank goodness for you, otherwise, I wouldn't know how to interact with Finn. It's strange too, Finn doesn't resemble anyone in our family. Our kids always loved to study growing up, but Finn just loves to cause trouble. If you hadn't both seen him born with your own eyes, I really wouldn't believe he was mine. After my feigned sigh, I watched Chloe and Kyle's arms simultaneously stiffen. Then Kyle shot up from his seat. His face contorted with rage as he pointed at me and demanded, "What kind of nonsense are you spouting in front of the child?" With that, he threw down his bowl and stormed into the bedroom. Chloe watched Kyle's retreating back, a smug, yet slightly guilty expression on her face, and looked at me. Grace, I'm not trying to criticize you, but what you just said was really out of line. Who questions if their own child is biologically theirs? Kids are most sensitive at this age. Thanks, Chloe. You know I speak before I think. Could you keep an eye on Finn for me? I'm going to go smooth things over with Kyle. That bag from last time? It's yours, please, sis. With that, I quickly ran to the walk-in closet, grabbed the bag, tossed it to her, and then turned and raced back to the bedroom. When I entered, Kyle was indeed in the shower. Kyle, you see, grew up poor, and his parents were lazy. Because of this, he was often ridiculed by classmates for his ill-fitting, dirty, and smelly clothes. Even after starting college, if Kyle passed a diner, I'd go back and shower, terrified of picking up any lingering odors. I quickly pulled out the phone spyware and installed it on Kyle's cell phone and computer. Then, the moment he pushed open the bathroom door and stepped out, I deliberately sprawled myself out on the bed, just as I expected. Grace Davis, where are your manners? Is this how your family teaches their daughters? Getting straight into bed without even changing? He walked over, roughly pulled me away, then rolled up the bedsheet and tossed it directly into the trash. This was Kyle's second habit. Besides showering, anything that touched the bed had to be accompanied by a change into pajamas, or I'd completely lose it. According to Chloe, on Kyle's first day in the dorm room at college, his trust fund kid roommate saw him get into bed in wrinkled clothes and openly mocked him. The roommate even accused Kyle of being unhygienic and switched dorms shortly after. Both Kyle and the trust fund kid roommate had arrived a week early, so in the end, only the two of them, the dorm supervisor, and Chloe knew about it. But from then on, Kyle became increasingly particular. In the past, whenever he acted like this, I would apologize, and even felt heartbroken for his past, but now, knowing the truth about this scoundrel, if I didn't slap him twice, it would be the last bit of sympathy I'd ever feel for him. This time, not only did I not apologize, but I acted completely out of character. You're being overly fussy. I just changed my clothes. I can't even lie on my own bed. It's always like this, as if I'm something dirty. Go ask around. Whose husband acts like this? With that, I opened the door, slammed it shut, and went to sleep in the next room. When we used to argue, I'd go to the kids' room, but now, seeing him, I just thought of that despicable couple. The child was innocent, but he looked too much like them. I couldn't look at him calmly anymore. Once in the room, I locked the door, took out my cell phone, and waited for those two despicable individuals to text. Before I received any messages from them, I saw a notification from the beauty clinic consultant Ed just added that afternoon. I opened it and saw she had sent me a bunch of promotional offers, all centered around high spending for extra benefits. These kinds of promotions were common for all beauty clinics, so I wasn't interested. But what did catch my eye was the last message the consultant sent me. Ms. Davis, our director's boyfriend, to celebrate her grand opening, specially invested a large sum of money to purchase the most advanced beauty equipment from Korea. It will arrive next week. If you have time, you're welcome to come and try it out. It's guaranteed to make you feel years younger overnight. I didn't care about feeling years younger overnight. What I cared about was whether the director and the director's boyfriend she mentioned were that despicable couple. Just then, the phone spyware Ed installed started picking up activity. Kyle, what's going on? Why is Grace Davis throwing a tantrum again? You need to appease her. She's not like us. She's used to being pampered. She can't handle even the slightest bit of grievance. She has no manners at all. She just gets into bed all dirty, doesn't change, doesn't shower, and yet she's pampered. If I hadn't married her, who would want a woman like that? Then why are you still reluctant to divorce her? Finn is already 4, and Grace Davis isn't good to him. Today she even said she'd cancel all of Finn's extracurriculars. It infuriates me. How could anyone treat their own flesh and blood like that? It's too cold-blooded. Just wait a little longer. The insurance will be 3 years old soon. It's time for it to serve its purpose. And don't forget Grace's parents' shares insurance. My parents' shares? For some reason, I inexplicably thought of the wife murder for insurance scheme I'd seen in Thailand, and a chill instantly swept through my entire body. To be honest, we hadn't bought any accidental insurance. So I had to get to the bottom of this. Before that, I had to confirm one thing: who actually owned the newly opened beauty clinic. I opened a website, entered the information, and in the legal representative field, Chloe Miller's name was clearly displayed. Just moments before, I'd still held onto a sliver of hope. But Chloe? She was from a rural village, a sister who sacrificed everything for her brother. Where would she get the money to open a beauty clinic? The reason Chloe and I became good friends, even best friends, back in college was because she often went hungry and sometimes couldn't even afford a bottle of water. I've always been soft-hearted, so I often helped her. Over time, we became inseparable friends, and I learned her story. Chloe's original name was Zhu Yan, which meant hoping for a son. After her younger brother was born, when their family registered their household, her brother was named Kevin Miller, the family's pride. Her parents then simply chose the character Yan to replace her original name, following the two-character style of her brother's name. From childhood, Chloe had been brainwashed by her family. She was to take care of her brother for life so that when she eventually married and faced hardship, she would have someone to rely on. That's why in college, any money she painstakingly earned from part-time jobs would be spent on things for her brother or directly transferred back for him to use. Every time, I was furious that she wouldn't stand up for herself, but I also felt heartbroken for her. So I unconsciously became increasingly kind to her. Thinking about this, I suddenly realized that if I wanted to teach those two despicable individuals a lesson, Kevin Miller would be a perfect pawn, and if he knew his sister had opened a beauty clinic, it'd surely bring his entire family to live there, mooching off her. That would certainly be interesting to watch, but how to get in touch with her brother was still a problem. I went back to scroll through that despicable couple's chat history and discovered that Kyle Sterling, who seemed so honest and dull in front of me, actually became remarkably flirtatious and suggestive when with Chloe. Their chat history wasn't just ambiguous, it was utterly repulsive. I thought back to when Kyle would come with me to my parents' house. I'd always be quiet and unresponsive. Each time, I'd explain to my family that he was just introverted and not good with words. I wanted to slap myself. Look at this. What an articulate person would say, "My little darling, I missed you so much. You're the only woman who will ever be mistress of this house." Every second I spend with her is agony. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have to swallow your pride and appease her. I'm truly fed up with being her sycophant. Just a little longer, and I'll give you a proper wedding. From the moment we got together until now, I'd always called me Grace Davis. Grace Davis. Once, I playfully asked him to call me baby, and he irritably snapped, can you stop being so unreasonable? Do you have to make a big deal out of everything? I must have been out of my mind to think he was just shy back then. I even managed to move myself with that thought. Nobody was more idiotic than I was. As I kept thinking, I started to cry, and the tears flowed all night long. The next day, I told Kyle that my parents missed Finn, and I was going to take him to their place. Some relatives were visiting, so he could meet them and get some cash gifts. At first, Kyle disagreed, and Chloe was also very nervous, but as soon as I mentioned meeting people and cash gifts, both of their faces lit up. What they didn't know was that their good days were about to come to an end. After a 5-hour train ride, once we arrived home, I handed Finn over to the nanny and immediately pulled my parents into the room, watching my parents, who kept fussing over me. I suddenly broke down and sobbed. "Has that scoundrel Kyle been bothering you?" My dad frowned, grabbing me as he asked, "What are you doing? Can't you see our daughter is crying like this? Who are you trying to scare with that fierce look?" Sure enough, the moment my mom spoke, my dad instantly recoiled, muttering awkwardly, "You old woman, always lecturing me. Wasn't I just worried about our daughter?" Seeing them relax, I didn't hide anything. I told my parents everything, because I couldn't find my child on my own. The most pressing concern now was where my own child was and if they were safe. While I couldn't imagine the worst, what if Kyle and Chloe were truly monsters? What? He dared to swap the child? I'll go kill him right now. My dad was furious upon hearing this. I quickly pulled him back, most afraid that they would be cornered animals resorting to desperate measures. My child's fate was unknown. Otherwise, with my explosive temper, I wouldn't have been able to play along with them, Dad. I came back because I want you to help me investigate what happened when I gave birth. Once we get to the bottom of it, I'll settle scores with Kyle." Hearing me, my dad calmed down. Then, my dad went out to make calls, and my mom went to contact her old friends. Although our family wasn't among the wealthiest or most powerful, my grandfather's generation did produce a few people of high social standing. Before dinner that night, my parents told me they'd have the results within 3 days and not to worry. During dinner, my parents no longer dotted on Finn as they used to. I knew they were heartbroken, seeing Finn and thinking of their grandchild whose fate was unknown, perhaps even their gender. Before going to bed that night, I routinely checked the surveillance footage and chat logs. What I found nearly made me faint with rage. I had barely left, and the man of the house, who was supposedly always working late and coming home early, hadn't gone to work today. The two of them spent the entire morning being lovey-dovey in the living room. After ordering takeout and eating, they went back to the bedroom, watching their intertwined figures on the bed and their satisfied expressions. My heart felt like it was being brutally stabbed and then twisted, the pain so intense I nearly suffocated. When Chloe first introduced Kyle to me, she said, "This is my childhood friend. We're from the same area. He's a really good guy, just a bit reserved indeed." He barely uttered a word to me, saving all his conversations for someone else in bed. After turning off the sickening surveillance footage, I opened the chat logs again. Then, I found that a girl with the contact name measurements 91-59-96 had sent Kyle many messages today, mostly asking what he was doing and why he wasn't responding. Interestingly, this girl called Kyle hubby, and her messages were all like, "Hubby, what are you doing? I miss you so much." Kyle replied 4 times in total. The first 3 times he said he was busy. The 4th time, he explained, "Be good, baby. Hubby has an important meeting today. Here's some money. Why don't you invite your best friend for afternoon tea?" Following that was a cash gift of 52,000. The girl seemed to actually go for afternoon tea and sent many selfies. The girl in the photos was curvy with a youthful look, but her face was heavily altered with cosmetic enhancements. She was dressed provocatively, and even I found her incredibly sexy. Ha! So Kyle liked this type. Thinking of Chloe's flat figure, I couldn't help but laugh. Then I downloaded her photos and sent them to a trust fund kid friend, asking if he knew her. He was a well-known playboy in our circle. His character was decent, but his private life was a mess. He claimed there wasn't a woman he couldn't get. Before long, my trust fund kid friend sent me a file directly. After opening and reading it, I found my husband and my best friend increasingly fascinating. The girl with the measurements was Amber Thorne, and she was from the same hometown as Chloe Miller. After Amber Thorne got into college, her excessive vanity led her to take out one online loan after another, eventually almost falling into an exploitative loans crisis. The reason it was almost was because in her sophomore year, She met a real estate mogul who took her as his kept woman and resolved her financial issues. After that, Amber Thorne dropped out of college and spent 2 years as a kept woman. During those 2 years, she underwent plastic surgery, breast augmentation, and dozens of other procedures, transforming into someone her own parents wouldn't recognize if they stood right in front of her. Finally, the boss died of cancer, and Amber Thorne immediately fled, beginning her life as a gold digger. The reason my trust fund kid friend knew so much detail was because he had a buddy who, 6 months ago, was head over heels for Amber Thorne and insisted on marrying her. This information was initially uncovered by his buddy's family. Once I understood her modus operandi, things became much simpler. While getting revenge myself would be satisfying, it would be even more satisfying to use someone else to do the dirty work and watch from the sidelines. I created a burner account and added Amber Thorne. I thought she'd be difficult to add, but to my surprise, she accepted my request almost instantly. Not only did she accept, but she immediately sent me a price list, detailing everything from role-playing to the cost of spending a night with her. I thought she was just a gold digger. I never expected she was also an escort who was available for a price. In that case, things were even easier. I asked her, "I have a job for you, are you interested? I'll pay you a large sum of money once it's done." What kind of job? Who do I need to seduce? To what extent? Videos or photos? Just so you know, any videos I'm in will need to be blurred. Reading her messages, I instantly thought, she truly knows her business. It was absolutely eye-opening. Then I directly asked her, "Do you know Chloe Miller? That slut." Of course, I know her. Noticing the hostile tone in her message, and sensing a potential ally, I directly asked her, "Do you have a grudge?" "Ha! Who doesn't have a problem with that slut? Is Chloe Miller the one you want to mess with? Just tell me how you want to do it, but the money had better be good." Hearing her say that, I felt relieved instead. "Do you have contact information for Chloe Miller's brother, Kevin Miller? I need you to seduce him and lure him here. Chloe has opened a beauty clinic, and I want Kevin Miller to drag that place down. That slut can afford to open a beauty clinic." "Ha! You must be her competitor then. I'll take the job, but the money had better be good." Although I was curious about her constantly calling Chloe a slut. Given that we had just started working together, I simply transferred a sum of money to her and went offline. Then I contacted Sarah, a college classmate who worked at an insurance company, and asked her to help me check the status of the insurance policies under my name. The next day, Sarah replied, listing all the insurance policies under my name. I discovered that 3 years ago, an accidental death policy with a payout of $10 million had been added under my name, with Kyle Sterling as the beneficiary. Kyle Sterling had also taken out an accidental death policy for himself around that time, with me as the beneficiary, but I was certain I had never signed that insurance policy. My heart grew colder with each beat. Before this, I had always believed Kyle loved me, but countless facts were now telling me he didn't, or perhaps never had. Based on my understanding of him, signing 2 accidental death policies was also to clear himself of suspicion. After all, look, he signed one too. It's just that he was luckier than his wife. He got the payout, but I couldn't just let it go. I had to wait for the information my dad uncovered. Once he found out, I would immediately divorce that scoundrel and make him leave with nothing. But after learning the truth, I wanted nothing more than to destroy that despicable couple. 3 days later, my dad looked at me, stooped and pale. I instantly had a dreadful premonition. Truthfully, ever since I discovered Finn wasn't my child, my heart had been beating erratically, and I often felt inexplicably restless, especially after seeing my dad's current state. This abnormality intensified. "Dad, is it about the child?" I couldn't bring myself to say the words, and tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. "Grace, you gave birth to a girl back then. A girl just like you." As he spoke, my dad was sobbing uncontrollably then. Through my dad's fragmented account, I understood everything. On the day I gave birth, it was a premature labor. I slipped on the stairs while going down. I fell, and the baby came early. At that time, I was nearly 3 months away from my due date. My parents had planned to come next month to stay with me, but I went into premature labor unexpectedly and was rushed to the hospital. After that, I was on a ventilator receiving treatment. By the time I fully regained consciousness, 3 months had passed, and the baby, under Chloe Miller's care, had returned to a normal infant's condition. This was also why my relationship with Chloe had grown so strong. She had cared for the baby for 3 months, helping me through the critical period, and I was grateful to her from the bottom of my heart. On the day I gave birth, over 200 babies were born at the hospital, but the only premature baby, on its second day of life, died on the spot because the parents weren't present to sign, which delayed the child's treatment time. After our daughter's death, her father decided to donate her body. Her kidneys were donated that same day to a patient with uremia. At the time, due to insufficient initial kidney function, the newborn's kidneys were used for a double kidney transplant. The patient with uremia was Edward Miller, Chloe Miller's father. This child whose body was donated was a girl. She was the only premature baby born at the hospital that day, and the only child who died and had her body donated the next day, which is why everyone still remembers her, according to the surveillance footage. The reason Kyle wasn't present that day was because he had gone to a hotel with Chloe. When I first woke up, I was already home, plus, I had never seen what a newborn looks like, so I never suspected that this child wasn't mine. Now, listening to my father's account, my erratic heartbeat suddenly felt encased in ice. I was frozen to the core, cold and piercingly painful. I absolutely wouldn't let that despicable couple get away with this. I would make them pay for their crimes. My dad had actually learned this yesterday. My mom had fainted on the spot and was still at the hospital. My dad, too, visibly aged 20 years overnight, as if all his spirit had been drained. I didn't know how to comfort them. My own heart was riddled with holes. I could only beg them to pull themselves together and help me get revenge on those monsters, perhaps having a goal. My parents were visibly less aged significantly, but my heart was still bleeding. I deliberately scolded Finn harshly, making him complain directly to those two monsters. Only then could I accelerate my revenge plan. Just then, Amber Thorne also sent me a text message, informing me that Kevin Miller was coming to see her and planned to rent an apartment for her. I told Amber Thorne to make sure to rent a very expensive apartment in a gated community. Chloe Miller had plenty of money, and if she ran out, she still had her beauty clinic. That night, I indeed received another call from Kyle. Grace Davis, what in the world is wrong with you? It's one thing to give the child the cold shoulder at home, but you're giving him attitude at your parents' place too. Now you're even starting to scold him. Are you planning to hit him next? Ha! Not only did I want to hit him, I wanted to strangle him. While the child was innocent, everything he had now was stolen from my daughter. Are you insane? Look at you. What's the difference between you and a shrew now? If you dare lay a hand on that child, I swear I'll divorce you. Hearing that, I couldn't bother pretending anymore. I sneered coldly. Fine, then divorce me. Then I hung up, wanting to see what those two monsters would do to me in their anger. Sure enough, in the chat logs, Chloe kept blaming Kyle for neglecting the child, even fanning the flames by suggesting I wanted to ruin Finn and destroy him with excessive praise. She even said, "Has Grace Davis been cheating? Otherwise, why has she changed so much? She used to be a bit fierce, but she never scolded the child, and she wouldn't have dared to hang up on you right after you mentioned divorce. Ha! She'd have to be alive to enjoy it." Seeing this, I had an immediate gut feeling that something bad was going to happen to me, and sure enough, those two despicable individuals were already discussing how to kill me and split the money. I thought they'd scheme something like tampering with my brakes, drugging me, or pushing me off a mountain, like in TV dramas, but these two were clearly more up to date. To avoid suspicion, they planned to take me on a trip, then go swimming, and find an opportunity for me to have an accident in the water. Both of them had grown up swimming in rivers since childhood, so they assumed I, having grown up in the city, must be a poor swimmer or a novice. What I didn't expect, however, was that Kyle Sterling died first. The next day, Kyle came to pick me up, bringing a pile of gifts. He had always been like that, never making a mistake when putting on a show. After reassuring my parents, I joined Kyle and Finn as we embarked on this battle. On the way, Kyle didn't say a single word to me, focusing entirely on Finn. Of course, I didn't care. But my attitude made Kyle increasingly convinced I was cheating, because he used to always give me the cold shoulder like this, and I'd end up trying to appease him like a dog. But now, just holding myself back from killing him consumed all my strength. Appeasing him? No way. Let anyone else be a sycophant. I was done with it, all the way there. Kyle's face grew increasingly ashen, and Finn, startled by him, kept leaning closer to me. Upon reaching the house, Chloe stood at the doorway, smiling as she watched us. Like the lady of the house, Finn quickly ran over and hugged her leg. My husband also strode over, cautioning Finn to slow down so he wouldn't bump into anyone, and I, like an outsider, watched this family of three, eventually being politely welcomed inside by the lady of the house. As soon as I sat down, Chloe spoke up. "Grace, my brother is visiting me. How about we all go to Willow Creek tomorrow?" Willow Creek was a famous local attraction, known for its numerous hot springs resorts nearby. I lowered my head, pretending to text, and replied, "You guys go ahead. I'm busy these next 2 days." After hearing my answer, Chloe deliberately leaned over to peer at my cell phone. "Who are you texting? You've been glued to your phone ever since you walked in." Sure enough, hearing her, Kyle also glared at me with a dark expression, as if I had done something to betray him. I scoffed directly at him, and his face grew even darker. "I'm buying some things for my parents, like this," I said, pointing to my cell phone screen to show her. When Chloe tried to pry further, I snatched my cell phone back. "Don't look, you wouldn't understand anyway. This is all stuff I heard from some trust fund kid friends. Besides, Chloe, your parents live in a rural village. How could they afford these? One treatment alone costs over $1 million. If you have that kind of money, you'd be better off buying a house quickly, otherwise, you won't have enough to keep providing for them long term, and if you stop halfway, it's like not having taken it at all. It'd be completely useless." With that, I ignored Chloe and Kyle's dark expressions and got up to take a shower. After all, I'd always been seen as naive and innocent in their eyes. It shouldn't be too much to just blurt out something, oblivious to the struggles of the world, right? This time, I still went back to my previous room, but before I even stepped inside, Chloe ran up from behind. "Grace, you haven't agreed to go to Willow Creek yet. You know my family is poor, my brother rarely gets to visit, and I want him to see new things, but I don't have enough money. Don't you have a membership card for that place? You also know that card can only be used by the cardholder, so please, Grace, you absolutely have to come." Listening to her words, and remembering the resentment in her eyes from earlier, I couldn't help but marvel. No wonder she's destined to be the final winner. That shamelessness and ability to capitalize on every opening is something most girls don't possess. This was also a perfect opportunity for me to settle things with them. "Fine, fine, fine. Look at you. So pathetic. You're so poor you have to stay at my place. And you're still scrimping and saving just to take your brother to a hot springs resort to broaden his horizons. Your brother is a good-for-nothing, a total leech who will drain you dry for the rest of his life." Without looking at her expression, I turned and walked away. "I'm going to take a shower. I've been traveling all day, completely exhausted, and tomorrow, I still have to spend money on that leech brother of yours. What kind of life is this?" With that, I closed the door to my room. I wasn't afraid of being suspected back in college. The other girls in the dorm room used to tell Chloe to stop supporting her good-for-nothing leech brother. It was only because I was close to Chloe back then that I never said it directly. Now that I'd said all that tonight, those two would probably discuss their next moves. And sure enough, the moment I entered my room, they started chatting again. "You used to say Grace Davis had no manners, and I even defended her. But today, I realized she truly has no manners. Not only did she mock my family for being poor, she also kept calling my brother a good-for-nothing. Those pampered rich girls, how would they know anything about the hardships of life? But after tomorrow, she won't be so arrogant anymore." Then the two of them discussed more details about how they would kill me tomorrow. The next day, after arriving at Willow Creek, Kevin Miller didn't show up. I knew he wouldn't come because yesterday, Kyle Sterling mentioned when he was chatting with Chloe Miller that it would just be the few of us, and it would be safe. If Kevin Miller came, I'd have to explain things to him. The more people who know, the greater the risk. "Grace, my brother ran off somewhere. Let's go play first. He'll probably be here soon. He just arrived from the rural village and is a bit of a country bumpkin, so please bear with him." Actually, I knew exactly where Kevin Miller was. He was with Amber Thorne, and Amber Thorne had dragged him to the mall, where Shed already picked out 3 sets of cosmetics. They were using Chloe Miller's card. Chloe Miller was worried her brother wouldn't have enough money to spend, so Shed just given Kevin Miller her salary card and told him not to hold back. But Amber Thorne would certainly not hold back when spending Chloe Miller's money today. She was determined to max out her card. "Okay, let's go swimming first, though I'm not a very good swimmer. You two will have to keep an eye on me then." After I said that, I saw the two scheming women exchange delighted glances out of the corner of my eye. Those two thought I was a poor swimmer, but actually, my grandfather, who was a national swim team coach, had taught me to swim since I was a child. If my mom hadn't been so against it, I would definitely be a swimmer myself by now. The swimming area here is divided into a deep section and a shallow section. For the deep section, you even have to sign a waiver acknowledging you can handle it and are responsible for any accidents. After signing, Kyle Sterling and I went down to swim, while Chloe Miller took Finn to play in the shallow section. Once in the water, Kyle Sterling suddenly grabbed my hand, rubbing my skin with his fingers like a venomous snake. It scared me so much I broke out in a cold sweat. Grace, I wanted to build a good life with you. So, you're saying you don't want a good life anymore? You want a divorce? I feigned anger and used it as an excuse to pull my hand away, then swam furiously forward. Kyle Sterling followed me because there was a blind spot ahead with no security cameras. Once we reached the area without security cameras, I intentionally pretended to be tired and stopped to rest. Kyle Sterling thought it was a good opportunity, grabbed me, and tried to push my head underwater. But I wasn't just going to let that happen. I resisted, purposefully moving around to exhaust Kyle Sterling. Kyle Sterling's physical condition was actually terrible, especially in the years since he started working. As for me, since I had nothing to do at home, I exercised daily, and my physical condition was better. Moreover, Ethan Hayes was nearby, and if anything unexpected happened, he would rush over to save me immediately. Then, I pretended to be out of strength, yelled for help, and demanded to know why Kyle Sterling was doing this. Why? You have the nerve to ask me why? Since I've been with you, how much disrespect have you shown me? You're always getting angry over nothing, and even your parents treat me like a live-in son-in-law. The money for your startup, our house, and our connections, didn't all of that come from my family? When I married you, you brought a dowry. When I started my business, for a better life for you, isn't it right that they should contribute money and effort? Help! At this point, I noticed Kyle Sterling was losing his strength. I struggled forcefully, breaking free from him, and Kyle Sterling, as expected, gradually lost strength until he couldn't swim anymore. But strangely, his loss of strength seemed too fast. I deliberately swam forward, feigning panic and escape. Without looking back, after reaching the shore, my legs started cramping, and it hurt so much I had to recover for a while. Then I immediately called the police, telling them someone had tried to murder me. Then I found a place to hide and waited for the police to arrive. Kyle Sterling dared to commit such a bold act today because he and Chloe Miller thought there were no security cameras in that corner. Actually, there weren't any half a month ago, but after a safety incident occurred there, they were installed. However, the two despicable people's information clearly remained outdated from half a month prior. The reason I knew was that one of the shareholders of this place was a trust fund kid. He had complained in a group chat earlier that when they were installing security cameras uniformly, other shareholders found it troublesome and didn't install one in that blind spot. Now, after an incident, they not only had to install it but also pay a fine. When the police arrived, I was sobbing uncontrollably in the corner after Kyle Sterling was taken away. The police reviewed the security footage. They also saw our argument. First, I was angry, then Kyle Sterling pressed my head underwater, and finally, I escaped, and he drowned in the water, and I was merely a lucky and pitiful victim. After Kyle Sterling died, I donated all $10 million in compensation under Lily's name. I hoped my baby would have a sweet life in her next life. And I also hoped this money would accumulate good karma for her, so she could have a happy family in her next life. Kyle Sterling was dead. But it wasn't enough. The other culprit still paraded in front of me, even demanding, "Why are you so cruel? He was just arguing with you. If you had just looked back, he could have been saved." Do you know how terrifying his expression was then? You saw the security footage. He had a twisted expression, trying to take my life. How could I dare look back after I finally escaped? Besides, if you hadn't insisted on dragging me to Willow Creek, we wouldn't have gone swimming. After saying that, I closed the door, touching my trembling hand. I knew I was scared, very scared. Kyle Sterling had been schemed to death by me, but in this game, it was either his death or mine, and our daughter's life was caught in the middle. Afterward, I encouraged Amber Thorne to insist on marrying Kevin Miller, telling Kevin Miller, "If you want to marry me, you need a decent car. You've seen those trust fund kids who pursue me. Every single one of them has a luxury car. Kevin Miller was a vain man, and spurred on by Amber Thorne, he agreed on the spot, but Kevin Miller had no money, so he went to Chloe Miller again, after Chloe Miller left. I changed the keys to all the locks in the house, intent on monitoring Chloe Miller's information. Chloe Miller hadn't seemed to use the designer bag I gave her recently, and I hadn't monitored anything significant. Just as I was about to ask Amber Thorne, she suddenly sent me a text message. Chloe Miller is getting married. Her beauty clinic had a medical malpractice incident and she urgently needs money to settle it, but Kevin Miller spent all the money in the card. To whom? A colleague of hers. I heard his family runs a business. They're quite wealthy, huh? Those with treacherous hearts indeed. Kyle Sterling had just died, and just 2 days ago, she was so intimate and loving with him. When exactly is the wedding? I quickly asked. The date hasn't been set yet. Do you know what that wretched woman did? She actually made Kevin Miller's family of 3 take out exploitative loans to settle the beauty clinic issue. After it's done, she'll use the dowry to repay the loan. And that deceitful woman even promised to buy Kevin Miller a house in the city. Kevin Miller doesn't want to be in so much debt right now, so he's hesitating. It's your time to shine, I teased. A few days later, Amber Thorne sent a text message telling me Kevin Miller had taken out exploitative loans. Chloe Miller was greedy. She wanted a respectable dowry for herself. And Amber Thorne, over the years, had gotten to know all sorts of shady people in society, so she connected them directly to exploitative loans. Sure enough, a month later, Chloe Miller, beaming with triumph, knocked on my door, inviting me to her wedding. She told me normally, "Since your husband just died, I shouldn't invite you. It's bad luck, but considering you're my best friend." I begged my husband, and he couldn't refuse me, so he agreed. She said this while looking at me coyly. I accepted the wedding invitation expressionlessly and told her, "Okay, I'll definitely be there on time." Not only would I be there, but I'd also bring her a big gift. Who knew that while preparing this gift, I'd make an unexpected discovery? On the wedding day, I went with Finn. The wedding was luxurious, with many guests. Everyone was smiling and looking at the couple's wedding photos on the projector with blessings. When I entered, leading Finn, dressed in a simple black outfit, accompanied by numerous bodyguards, the entire hall fell silent. I walked onto the stage, took the microphone from the MC. "Today is my good friend Chloe Miller's wedding. I truly wish her happiness. Before that, I'd like to ask everyone to see a gift I prepared for her." Then I inserted the USB drive into the computer, replacing the wedding photos that were playing. Suddenly, Chloe Miller's soft and sweet moans echoed, and then a video of her and Kyle Sterling intimately making love, completely naked, was exposed in front of the entire audience. The MC tried to turn it off, but I waved my hand, and the bodyguards blocked everyone. Then I took out a paternity test result. My husband is now dead. You must have read the reports about how he died. Originally, this was his bloodline, my own flesh and blood, but 2 days ago, during a routine checkup, I accidentally discovered that our blood types were different. You can probably guess the rest of the story. This child is Chloe Miller's and my husband's. I originally didn't want to come to your wedding, but Chloe Miller insisted on inviting me, so I came. I hadn't intended to make a big fuss about this, but last night, while packing, I saw the video they filmed earlier. I don't want Chloe Miller to ruin my family and also ruin someone else's family. Plus, the child needs to be returned to her. After saying that, I left under the escort of bodyguards, leaving Finn with Chloe Miller. Finn entered this family at the cost of Lily's life. The fact that I did nothing to this child already fulfilled whatever connection there was. Later, Amber Thorne told me Chloe Miller was disinvited from the wedding and sentenced to death. Yes, death penalty, actually. On the day Kyle Sterling died, I kept wondering, was Kyle Sterling's physical strength really that poor? He lost strength so quickly. On the day of swimming, my cell phone was in my bag. Chloe Miller had Kyle Sterling's, and I didn't get it back after he died. But I could see their text messages. The day before Chloe Miller's wedding, I suddenly found she had sent Kyle Sterling a large number of messages, first reminiscing about their past, then cursing, and finally she said, "I didn't mean to kill you, but you wouldn't marry me and kept threatening me. Besides, You drank the chicken soup yourself. I originally intended for both of you to die chicken soup. I followed that lead, and that's when I discovered Kyle Sterling was actually killed by Chloe Miller in the deep section of the swimming pool. There was a type of herb in the water that could cause hallucinations and make one feel weak all over. However, this herb was generally harmless unless you consumed ginseng, which would then activate its medicinal properties the day before swimming when we were eating. Chloe Miller insisted on drinking ginseng chicken soup. After all, during the time I was back at my parents' home, they had been intimately together, day and night. Finally, they both drank the entire pot of ginseng chicken soup, so Chloe Miller didn't go to the deep section that day. And Kyle Sterling wasn't actually exhausted. It was the ginseng and the herb taking effect. I found out about the herb's effect by chance. The trust fund kid went swimming in the deep section and brought some of the herb back home. His family elder happened to be a botanist and discovered its properties. At the time, the trust fund kid even sighed. Good thing no unlucky person ate ginseng and then came swimming, otherwise we'd eventually have to close down. And Chloe Miller knew about this herb because her father, Edward Miller, was a famous local herbalist in the rural village. Afterward, I directly called the police, and Chloe Miller was sentenced to death. Chloe Miller killed Kyle Sterling because he had discovered her cheating scandal involving stolen exam scores and had been using it to threaten her. This included introducing us and making her find a way to cause me an accident after marriage, brainwashing me into giving all my dowry money to Kyle Sterling for his startup. Now I was on the verge of dying, but Kyle Sterling didn't want to marry Chloe Miller. Instead, he wanted Chloe Miller to connect him with another colleague of hers who was a child of an official. Otherwise, he would expose Chloe Miller and ruin her reputation. That's why Chloe Miller resorted to this desperate measure. Unfortunately, due to the passage of time, the girl whose exam scores Chloe Miller had stolen couldn't be found quickly, and Chloe Miller's family, after successive rounds of violent debt collection, fled into the remote mountains and haven't dared to come down since. As for Finn, he was abandoned at the entrance of an orphanage. 3 years later, Ethan Hayes and I got married. After marriage, we had a beautiful little girl. Her name is Lily Hayes, and she chose it herself when she drew lots. She said, "Mommy, I love this name, and I love you too. When I was looking for my mom every day, I saw you right away. You're so beautiful. I wanted you to be my mom. So I came." Epilogue. My name is Amber Thorne. Originally Zhang Zhaodi. Unfortunately, I was never destined to bring a brother into my family. The year I was 17, after the college entrance exam, Chloe Miller, a troublemaker in our class, slept her way and bribed a well-connected older man working in the Education Bureau to swap our exam scores. The day I received my acceptance letter, Chloe Miller came to my house with her old man, gave my parents a sum of money, and warned them never to let me leave the village. Hiding outside listening, how could I accept that? So, I stole 500 yuans from my parents, waited at the post office every day, and as soon as I got the junior college acceptance letter, I took the train and left. When I arrived at the college, it was really big and beautiful, but I couldn't even afford a blanket, and I didn't have extra clothes. Luckily, the school offered work-study programs. During the summer of my sophomore year, while working part-time, I met a boy named Ryan Adams. He had such a clean smile. He bought me clothes, bought me food, and bought me cosmetics and designer bags. But good times didn't last long. After school started, a senior from my third year suddenly told me she had a job to introduce to me and asked me to sign something. I signed without a second thought. After that, I found myself frequently hounded by debt collectors, but I had never taken out a loan. At some point, rumors also started spreading in school that I was materialistic and had taken out exploitative loans. Everyone pointed at me when they saw me, and many guys looked at me lecherously, as if I were an objectified commodity that wasn't worth much. I met Walter Stevens when I was about to jump into the river. I didn't know his name then, and I still don't know it now. He saved me and told me to follow him. He would help me with the money problem. How could I not know that I was just jumping from one abyss into another? But I still agreed, because I wanted revenge. The moment I jumped into the river, I suddenly remembered Chloe Miller's face, the senior's face, and the faces of those who kicked me while I was down. I wasn't willing to die like that, so I dropped out of college and willingly became a kept woman. Walter Stevens was really good to me. When I wanted plastic surgery, he paid for me to go to Korea for surgery. When I wanted to change my name, he paid to transfer my household registration and change my name. Such a good person didn't live long. He died of cancer just 2 years later. After Walter Stevens died, I had some savings in my account, all given to me by Walter Stevens during his lifetime. If I hadn't left quickly, his children might have taken all that money. I returned to days where no one cared for me, no one loved me. I cried for a few days, but still felt I needed revenge. I decided to emulate that wretched woman, Chloe Miller, and seduce powerful men to help me get revenge. Sure enough, it took 3 years. The person who swapped my exam scores collapsed. The senior who tricked me into signing a fake contract went bankrupt. Just as I was preparing to take revenge on Chloe Miller, my, I guess, ex-boyfriend, Ryan Adams, appeared. Perhaps it was fate's cycle. He fell in love with me again. For this, he even broke ties with his family and wanted to elope with me. Unfortunately, his family eventually found out. They sent him abroad, but at his request, they didn't make things difficult for me. I returned to a life of seducing men to pass the time. This time, the man fell for me himself. He said he was a trust fund kid and often transferred money to me. His name was Kyle Sterling, but I thought he was more of a scumbag. That wretched woman, Chloe Miller, had actually offended someone else. A rich man transferred a large sum of money to me, telling me to seduce that idiot Kevin Miller. This idiot was not only stupid but also as poisonous as his sister. Back in school, he raped a younger schoolgirl. In the end, the girl got pregnant and was kicked out by her parents, dying in the river that very day. Initially, I didn't know Kevin Miller did this. After we got together, he bragged to me himself that when he was in school, a rural girl got pregnant with his child, forced him to marry her, and threatened to die. And he never thought she'd actually die then. Under the rich man's instructions, I gradually ruined Chloe Miller's family, and Chloe Miller was sentenced directly to death. Not only that, she also became the infamous example of the ultimate cautionary tale about treacherous friends online. And I was alone again, but I'm quite happy now. I went to an unfamiliar city again and started a small business using the business principles Walter Stevens taught me. Maybe when I'm older, I can adopt a child from an orphanage. Well, striving to live is good.